to episode 52 of the Walsh & Apps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today we're talking about running an independent publishing company with my guest, Amy Barickman. Founder and owner of Indygo Junction, Amy Barickman is a creative leader in the fabric arts industry. In 1990, Amy founded Indygo Junction, a sewing pattern and book publishing company, which has published over 1,200 pattern titles and 80 books. Amy develops products not only for Indygo Junction, but also for licensed programs with leading manufacturers in both the craft and gift industry, including her Crossroads denim fabric line with James Thompson Company. Amy's most recent book, The Magic Pattern Book, was published by Workman in 2014. Amy has a passion for all things vintage and has an impressive collection of textiles, handmade fabric, and needle art. This collection is the inspiration for much of Amy's work, including her book, Vintage Notions, and newest fabric line, Vintage Made Modern with RJR Fabrics. Amy Barickman, welcome.
Thanks, Abby. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. So you live in Prairie Village, Kansas, which is outside of Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm wondering what the craft and sewing scene is like in Kansas City.
Well, it's exciting, especially recently. For instance, the Modern Quilt Guild is, I think we have one of the largest chapters in the country. We also have a really great maker community. One of my favorite things to do each month is to go down to First Fridays in the West Bottoms. And this is an area where a bunch of warehouses have been converted into vintage venues of DIY as well as wonderful antiques and just tons of creative inspiration. So I feel really fortunate to be in the Kansas City community. Just a great lifestyle here in the Midwest, and great to have the community of creativity. We also have Hallmark based here, and they have brought national and international artists in that work at Hallmark, and many times those artists are the crafters or the makers that I find at art fairs and markets. So it's a pretty perfect spot for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Do you work from home?
I have a studio that I work at from home, and the business then also has a warehouse that stores our books and patterns, and so we ship from a secondary location. But yes, I'm fortunate that I do work at home.
Nice. And so do your employees commute to your house?
Yes, I do. And they work at home too. So we have meetings in the office, and there's a little bit of both that happens.
Okay.
And it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah. How often do you have to go down to the warehouse and manage that part of it?
Almost never. Uh-huh. So that's nice. It can be all done through email and correspondence through email, really. I don't remember how many years ago we took the inventory out of our home location and then moved it to a warehouse that's a fulfillment warehouse. They essentially fulfill for other companies as well as ours. So it works well.
Yeah, because that's their business. They know how to fulfill orders, and so they've got it down to a science, and they just sort of fit you in as one of their clients.
Correct.
That's really cool. Interesting. That sounds like a good thing considering how many patterns you have and things. So you grew up in Iowa, and your mom, Donna, was a home economics teacher, and she was a designer. She designed sewing patterns for clothes and for bags when you were a child. And then she opened a craft store called Donna's in Valley Junction, Iowa, which she ran for 25 years. And were you in the store often growing up?
You know, I was in the store often. However, when I was in high school and I saw her selling and managing this retail business, she also made teddy bears, and that's really where she started teaching classes on making teddy bears. So I ended up launching in high school a custom or a teddy bear company where I would manufacture teddy bears from vintage I'd go to the Salvation Army and find old coats that had a, really interesting fur. I'd buy mink stoles. And so she led me in that direction. So I really didn't work in her store. I actually worked down the street at a dress store, a high-end dress store. But I was always in this little Main Street community working, and her store was down the street from my job. So I learned a lot through that experience that has helped me, today be able to do what I'm doing.
And so her store was a craft store. What did that mean? What is a craft? Like, what did she sell besides that she sold the teddy bears?
We sold supplies for teddy bears. Then she would sell my bears that I had manufactured. We did everything from duplicate stitch on sweaters to Scherenschnitt, which was a cutting of paper and making lampshades technique. Yo-yos, when they first were, had their first resurgence. She did a lot with fabric projects. She taught classes. The one thing I remember about products that she carried, so once she started teaching crafts and had this retail store, she diversified into carrying some clothing and gift products. And one of her early lines was Vera Bradley. Before it was, at that time, it was quilted jackets and skirts and a few purses. So she diversified from crafts into fashion. She eventually was a dealer for Brighton jewelry and really had a following there in the Midwest, because her store had so much, unique merchandise and so much energy as far as product goes. She was a really great retailer and merchandiser. And so that was, I think it's a little bit of that's in my blood, but I did learn a great deal from that experience.
Yeah, it sounds like a store that was really special, like a destination. It was unique and different from what everybody else had. And she was sort of curating what was going to be in there and the feeling you got when you came in. So that's interesting. So then you went to the University of Kansas. You graduated in 1990. And am I right that you studied glass blowing?
I did. I was in fine arts throughout my 4 years, and I originally went for their jewelry making program, and then ended up finding that I was interested in the glass and graduating with my emphasis in glass blowing.
Wow. That's fascinating. That's a pretty rare emphasis, I feel like.
Right. Yeah, and the program actually is no longer in existence at KU, but I had some great teachers there, and really, the most important piece of my time at KU, I think, was just in the basic design, the beginning design classes is where I really had some great teachers, and I think that gave me a nice basis to do what I'm doing again today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so right out of college, you started Indygo Junction. You graduated in 1990. You started Indygo Junction in 1990, and at that time, your husband, Bob, was working with you. Is that right? He sort of helped out.
I was not married at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we didn't get married, and I met him about a year and a half out of college.
Okay.
So I originally started on my own. I was fortunate because the quilt market, which is our main trade show that we exhibit at to sell to the shops and retailers, was in Kansas City the spring following graduating. So I was able to exhibit and have a nice booth. I borrowed, display merchandise from my mom's store, and I was able to launch at that local, not have to travel and have all the travel expenses. So that's what really got the business off the ground quickly. And at that time I was living on the plaza. I just had my I had my business in my apartment. I was gluing photos on 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper and putting them in plastic bags myself, and, started kind of from the ground up. And then once I met my husband, he was in school to be a teacher at that time. And so he did join me in traveling to trade shows. We did everything from TNNA, which is the big needlework trade show, to CHA, which at that point was called HIA, the big craft and hobby show. That's really where scrapbooking was a huge focus for years past. So we did it. We have worked together ongoing, and he still is involved with the business and helps me. But now he has his own career, and he did go teach for several years, which was a really great experience for him, and was a nice career.
So, what was your vision? Right, you started this company, Indygo Junction, and right out of college, and what was your vision for it at that time? What was the idea? Sort of, what was the seed?
Well, the seed really was that I thought I could help artisans market their work. And I knew that I had a base with a pattern business because my mother had, had patterns in her line that I could bring into my line. And then my hope was it would evolve into more of maybe being an artist agent. But the pattern business, really took off. And so that remained the, focus of the business. But I always enjoyed, and that's really why I named it Indygo Junction. I didn't want to attach it to any particular, category of products. And my original logo, I remember, was a handprint. And because I love the handmade artisans' work. And so that's where did the name Indygo, I mean, it's Indygo with a Y, like how did you come up with those two words? Well, I think Junction came from the fact that my mom's store was in Valley Junction, and I liked the idea of the junction being kind of a meeting place. And honestly, Indygo, I think I saw a label or something that had Indygo spelled that way, and I liked the way it sounded with Junction, and it was my favorite color, essentially. So I thought, why not Indygo Junction?
Right.
And I feel fortunate that I ended up, with that name. We've been able to evolve the business in different directions because the name has been, nondescript, essentially.
And what was your mom's role back then? So she, she had these patterns she was carrying, and you were able to, find, sort of the distributor and bring those in. Is that how the first ones, or the connections, between herself and the design? Like, what was her role in that very beginning part?
Well, she had really acquired a really wonderful creative community that taught classes in her store and created, instructional material for projects for her store. Patrick Lose is a designer today who does phenomenal work, and he started originally with Indygo Junction and through just visiting my mom's store, and then we were introduced and, progressed from there. So she, in the early days, was helping me acquire artists, and we worked, either we would buy designs outright or we would license designs, and she really continued to do that until she closed her store because her store drew creative people, and many times she would have the mind of a marketer and product developer, and be able to pitch me ideas. And then some of them I ran with, some of them I said, no, I don't think that's going to fly. And then I was doing, that on the side myself, but she was a wonderful resource.
Yeah. And this is the days before the internet. So it was really hard to sort of find, new people, new talent, new ideas. Like it was just a slower pace, and it was also a sort of a different sense of search and discovery too.
Completely different. I love what we have today, but at the same time, I feel fortunate I started when I did, because I do think it's a much more crowded market out there, and challenging beyond those early years.
Yeah. What was quilt market like in 1990? I guess that would have been 91 maybe.
Yeah, yes. It was smaller. There weren't the designers that we see today, the influence of the independent designers like, Amy Butler, Tula Pink.
Right.
But at the same time, it was really the similar experience as far as, you're seeing your retailers, you're seeing your mail order catalogs, you're networking with the press or PR opportunities. We did, as far as like business being done, there was many, many more orders that were taken at the show. Now I feel like the trade shows are more of a gallery experience where shops can come in and really get a nice overview of what's out there. But many times they, take our newsletter and they take it home and they study it and then they end up ordering through a distributor. So
right.
Many times we don't have that direct sale that we used to when we were at a quilt market.
Yeah, I think that's sort of fascinating, the way that the trade show has changed and sort of what role it might play in 10 years, 5 years from now, and the effect that Instagram and, that all of this sort of instant sharing and previews and things like that has on the way business is done at a show.
Yes, I think it's definitely evolving, and we're trying to, be sensitive to that and try to take advantage of that opportunity, because the trade shows are so expensive to do if you have to travel, with airfare and shipping merchandise, and so looking at opportunities that we can connect, to the consumer online or to the business to business is definitely something that we're really paying attention to.
Yeah, like new ways to make it worthwhile to have that FaceTime. Yeah, and I do think it's worthwhile, but it's sort of being reinvented in a way. Sort of what you do there and what its purpose is.
Right.
It's sort of changing and shifting, which I'm kind of fascinated by. So, all right, so you describe Indygo Junction as a fabric arts publishing company, the goal of which is to showcase the talent of leading sewing and craft designers. And it's really pretty amazing. I mean, it reminds me in some ways of like the Big Four, in that, there's like hundreds and hundreds of patterns. If you look on the website and you just, pick a category, bags, women's clothes, something like that, it's just like, pages of patterns. And so, it's like really prolific, and that's sort of interesting. I think the business model, though, as an independent company, I feel like it's pretty unique. I was trying to, find a comparable when I was researching for our conversation, and I was having a hard time identifying a comparable. And I wondered if you have one in mind, either within crafts or in another industry that sort of operates the way that you do.
I think we are unique. Off the top of my head, I can't necessarily come up with somebody that is in the category. There might be more quilt-focused pattern companies out there that license. Pattern Peddler was one of them, but they did it in a different business model than we did, because we actually license and publish. They were more of a distributor of a variety of designers. And, currently we've kind of been evolving to where we're doing more in-house design ourselves, because I have some wonderful people right now with amazing talent. And so we can come together as a team and develop patterns and ideas internally and then publish. But I'm always open to looking for, talent that's out there that might be able to contribute to Indygo Junction's overall brand. But I do think we are unique in the fact that many pattern companies are pretty much independently run by the designer. And for me, the ability to, as you mentioned, be so prolific I have I have a lot of ideas and things I want to do. So orchestrating the team and then kind of architecting our product development is really my passion. So I just feel fortunate that it's worked, for this long, and that's where we're at right now. But
right. So this Indygo Junction was never about Amy Barickman's designs. That's just sort of not what the focus is. So if your focus is on product development, where you're scouting talent, you're working with designers, both licensed designers and in-house designers, to develop a product that will succeed in the marketplace, and then you're marketing that product. You're creating it and then marketing it. Which is, it's pretty interesting. And I wondered what your goal is for the designers, the outside designers, say, who work with you or have worked with you in the past. Is the goal there to launch them and launch their careers sort of independently, sort of we'll give you a start? Or is the goal to sort of have them be under the Indygo Junction umbrella and be kind of like part of your family ongoing? Like, or does it vary?
It probably varies a little bit. Ultimately, if we invest in launching somebody, it's nice to have them hang around for a while, because there is a lot to investing in producing a pattern and working with a new artist. And that is where I think the business model is shifting for us because of people's ability to self-publish now. And distribute, e-patterns, all these different ways, Etsy, that you can sell your own PDFs and things like that. So we've really kind of turned a corner to getting a better balance between, what we produce in-house versus what we license with outside designers. So we're not in the position where we've invested completely in somebody else's brand, but instead focus on Indygo Junction. And that's really to where you'll see our logo sometimes as just Indygo Junction, and then you'll see our logo Indygo Junction by Amy Barickman. So that's a branding strategy to make sure we connect the dots between Amy Barickman and Indygo Junction and that connection, and make sure there's understanding in the market kind of that, I may not be sewing and making the patterns, but I'm kind of architecting what's happening with our design.
So in order to sort of pull it closer.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
go ahead.
Well, that really happened when Vintage Notions, the book, I decided I was going to undertake self-publishing that, and I worked with a business consultant, and he really suggested that I come out from behind the Indygo Junction brand and establish myself as, a personality in the industry.
Yeah, I do think it helps. It's interesting. People can argue back and forth, and I do think that it helps to have a face. And a name and a story. And I don't know whether that always was the case, but I think now in a situation where people are connecting one-on-one with designers so often online, and they feel like they know Tula Pink, they feel like they know Heather Bailey, they're sort of connecting with their stories, their lives, that they do want that. They have that desire to connect with you and see you. So I think it was wise. I think you.
No, I'm glad that when we did, because I think if we would have waited much longer, it would have been more and more challenging to establish that community that might follow the Amy Barickman brand as well as the Indygo Junction brand.
Right. Okay, so the artist that you license, is that kind of like an advance and then royalties? Is that the way that those deals work?
Usually that's what we do.
Right. Okay.
So they have something up front, and then, if the pattern really is popular, there's residual benefits.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And do your designers ever come to Quilt Market with you? I mean, besides your in-house team, but.
Right. Yes. Mary Ann Donzie. She is a extremely talented part of our team and has designed with me for probably over 15 years. And she has come to shows in the past. It's getting more and more challenging because of the cost of the shows.
Right.
So when we can make it work and we have the ability, we try to do that.
Okay. And tell me about Betsy Blodgett, because I feel like everywhere you are, she's there. She seems like your sort of right-hand woman, and I wonder how you met her and what she works on now.
Yes, Betsy is a special part of our team. And so originally I met Betsy when she had a store in Westport, which is a little community, little area in Kansas City. And she taught sewing classes in her store. She carried wonderful fabrics. She also had interesting, gifts and books, and I just loved her aesthetic and her style. And so she eventually, and she owned the store with her sister, they eventually closed the store, and at that time, I was looking for someone to come in and really assist me with product development as well as social media. So I had known Betsy and then visited, and we worked out her coming on board at Indygo Junction. So she does a variety of, things with me. We work together on blog posts. She does a lot of the acquisition, or most of the acquisition. She'll bring the suggestions for fabric lines that we feature on our pattern covers. So she works with the fabric companies and their marketing team. As far as social media, she's doing out there finding great posts to share and information and stories and articles for me. So she's has also worked with me. We're working on some videos, and so I think we're going to do some videos where we team up together, and then also she'll probably end up doing some Indygo Junction videos on techniques for us, and beyond that, we'll just see where things go. In a small, in a business our size, it's everybody pitches in, and I have Cheryl here who's behind the scenes, and she's an amazing person to work with too. I'm really feeling like I've been blessed with some wonderful talent and just nice people to work with. Mary Myers, another one of our team members that has a wonderful history in sewing. She used to be a teacher at a local community college, and then she had her own pattern company back when I started Indygo Junction. So I think for me, having those team members that really know their stuff has been incredibly beneficial to the brand.
Yeah, totally. I feel like being able to have someone who can be almost like a second you, in other words, who has this talent, the skills, the knowledge, understanding, the vision, is just such a gift, because you're more than twice as productive when there's two of you. So just with two is amazing, but to have several others is awesome. Okay, so what I think is really unique about Indygo Junction, beyond sort of finding new talent to bring in and license, is that you're also finding old talent. So you are a huge collector of vintage things, vintage sewing related things, and you've done a lot of work bringing back out of print media related to sewing, whether it's through republishing or reworking vintage patterns, or scouring home economics newsletters from the early 1900s for the best content and then publishing it again, or using vintage prints as an inspiration for a fabric collection. And I wonder, first, where do you go to collect what your collection? I'm betting that it continually grows. So where are you looking?
Well, eBay is a wonderful source for me because I can actually, for instance, my Vintage Notions book was based on the Women's Institute and Mary Brooks Pickens' work, and so I can key in a search. So every day in my email, I see new eBay items listed from those search keywords. So that's an easy way to collect. I've also, of course, traveled to flea markets, antique shows. Some of my favorite venues, I've been to Round Top a couple times in Texas, and that's a wonderful show to go to. Also, the country living fairs have some amazing vintage content as well as new designers. So those are my main sources. And, you know, as far as the Women's Institute material, my archive is very, very deep and I think I'm trying to acquire their entire course and all their publications. And there is, without the internet and eBay, there would have been no way for me to be able to do that. So, you know, that's a huge opportunity as far as if I find a particular illustrator or a particular author and I can, you know, acquire their collection of body of work pretty quickly through eBay.
So why did you feel like you wanted to self-publish Vintage Notions? Was it because a bigger publishing company just wouldn't be interested in a niche idea like that, or was there another reason?
Well, it was probably twofold. I was so inspired and excited about this material that I had a hard time being patient. And sometimes you have to be very patient when you're waiting for proposals to be reviewed at different book companies. So, and I, you know, in hindsight, yes, I think I was turned down by several publishers. I can't remember exactly the progression. So then I was thinking more about the content and how I wanted to have control of the content. So it was a strategic decision in self-publishing. So as I wanted to continue to evolve the content, I wanted to not be, you know, having to answer probably to somebody else's plan, and I could drive that plan myself. Taking on the marketing too, I really loved developing the marketing in addition to the product. And so in doing that self-publishing, I was able to, you know, schedule my book tour. I went to Country Living Fair and talked to them, and they had me come in and present, and I was able to work with retailers that were there and get the book in the right places, I felt. Not to say that I don't think it would have been, you know, in hindsight, what would have been like if I would have been patient and found a publisher for it. I don't think it would be the same book.
Do you want to just tell us, for people who haven't seen it, what Vintage Notions is about?
Sure. So the book is a collection of writings and wisdom, recipes, patterns, essays from the Women's Institute of Domestic Arts and Sciences, which was founded in 1916. An inspirational guide to cooking, sewing, needlework, fashion, and fun is the subtitle. And it's month by month, so it's kind of a domestic devotional, and I was able to use my vintage fabric collection and embroidery collection, scan those, some of my favorite pieces, and then layer those on the pages with illustrations from the Women's Institute. And then I wrote essays to companion Mary Brooks Pickens' essays at the beginning of each chapter or month. So it's not a craft how-to book. It's much more of a coffee table inspirational book. And so I think that's what publishers struggled with too. Where does this book fit? And many times that's a key, you know, factor for them, is being able to know that, okay, when we sell this book to, you know, whatever chain store we want to get it into, that we know this is going to go to the quilting buyer, or is it going to go to the sewing buyer, or where is it going to fit? And this book was just kind of a little bit of an anomaly. So I think that made it challenging for publishers.
Yeah. And I mean, if anyone is equipped to self-publish, I feel like it's you. Like, you've been in the publishing industry for a long time, especially in craft and sewing, and certainly in marketing. You know what it takes. You've got the connections. So, you were going to have a pretty high chance of success. But be that as it may, self-publishing a book is different, right? And then self-publishing patterns, for sure. So did you use Amazon Create Space, or did you have did you use a local press, or how did you work on that part?
Well, I was fortunate that we have Andrews McNeil Publishing here in Kansas City, and Jean Lowe, who was there for many years and launched the Mary Engelbright imprint there, worked with me on this book. So she had the connections, for sourcing the printing overseas. So it was published overseas. And she also, because this book really appealed and was more of a trade title than a crafting title. So it was really important that I had some consultation that knew that side of the business, who's Baker and Taylor, and they're the fulfillment for all the libraries. And they also do a large amount of distribution. But prior to Vintage Notions, I had never had to work with Baker and Taylor. So it was new frontier for me, and I was very fortunate to have her there by my side through the process. So I really appreciate, what she was able to do to help me through that journey. And then I did have some wonderful designers help me with it, and who had shared the love of the vintage that I do. And so it was a pretty unique experience. And I feel fortunate to have been on that journey. I'm not sure that I'd want to undertake it again, self-publishing, but I'm glad that it worked out the way it did.
Yeah, because it gave you the opportunity to get this idea out into the world, which was really important. So we were just talking earlier about Quilt Market. You not only go to Quilt Market, but you actually go to quite a few other trade shows. You go to, or have been recently, to the Sewing and Stitchery Expo, the original Sewing and Quilt Expo, and I feel like a lot of people go to those shows, but we hear so much about Quilt Market, and we almost never hear or see photos of these other shows. I'm not sure why that is, and maybe you can shed some light on why, and sort of what is unique about these other shows, these other trade shows that we are not seeing or don't know yet.
Okay. Well, I think first of all, Quilt Market is the business-to-business show. So, it's a completely different kind of show visually. It's incredibly beautiful, talent everywhere, just creating amazing displays. So, and those designers and retailers are all about promoting their business and sharing. So then you turn the table to, for instance, an original sewing and quilting show. And those are, consumer shows. So the booths in those shows are very much oriented to selling merchandise versus selling design and product that is, branded for a specific booth. And so that's why I think you don't see the visuals that you do from Quilt Market. Quilt Market just has a completely different vibe. And I think, at some point there are beautiful, quilt shows at the original sewing expos that I was at. They had, and then I was at, QuiltCon, I think, was kind of probably breaking that barrier, because that show just had so much excitement and just a wonderful exhibit of quilts. But all in all, I really think the Quilt Market is a much more visual show than these other shows.
Okay. And it was always that way. Am I right?
Right.
So when you were there way back in the day, before social media, before the internet, it was always that way. It was always about sort of beauty. And so it lends itself so well to Instagram, right?
Right.
Like it's
totally.
It's like the perfect match, even though it's not for consumers, whereas these other shows are for consumers. And so you would think more people would be there and be able to share it.
Right.
But it's less shareable.
I think so. And I think, as a consumer, you're not as much about, you're going there for your own benefit, not the benefit of sharing it with, say, your guild or your followers that you have. You're more about, fulfilling for your independent creativity, where at Quilt Market, it's all about, sharing and promoting and getting the word out. Right.
So, yeah, and I feel like you have a really unique perspective because you've been doing this for 25 years, and there's happened to be a 25 years in which media has changed drastically. So, from 1990 to 2015, I can't imagine a time in which media has changed more.
Right.
And so I just wonder if you have any sort of reflections or thoughts about that, about having to sort of stay on top of things and not feeling as though, well, everybody's lapping me. And so, but instead being continuing to be excited. You're embracing YouTube. You're on social media. You're doing digital patterns. You're bringing things in-house and becoming more of a personality of Amy behind Indygo Junction. Like, you're making these moves to sort of stay abreast. And I think that's really admirable and something that a lot of people sort of instead pull back and say, well, everything's changing and I can't do this anymore.
Right. Well, I think I was lucky to start so young. So that, and I had all that energy and was fearless back when I launched Indygo Junction. So I think that's helped with the longevity. I do, and I am, what feeds me is the challenge too, and the doing something different and new. And so I think really the evolution or revolution that we've had technologically that's affected our industry has probably kept me in it, because it's like new frontier. And I will say though that it's challenging in a way that you never feel like maybe you're doing as good of a job as you should be. And it's hard not to go out there and compare what you're doing to others, what others are doing, and not feel like, I don't know, that constantly there's opportunities that pop up that you're like, oh, wait a minute, how do we do, Snapchat, what should we be doing there? It's much more, intense than it was when I started and through the early years. And it's a lot more as far as requirement for I wouldn't be able to do all the things I'm doing without my staff. And, it's really, though, the reason we're doing all this is survival. Today's world, I think it's really required. You don't have a choice whether or not you want to, get into social media or think about video content.
Yeah, and you do a great job. I mean, I just want to say you do a great job with it. Like, I watched your video at, you launched, I think, 31 patterns at Market, and plus your fabric line, and you did a video with Alex Anderson, I believe, and she was talking to you about, sort of showing off some of the new samples from some of the patterns. And you just, you have that poise in front of the camera, you feel comfortable, I don't know, I think that not all of us can do that, but you've embraced it and you're doing it really nicely. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. It's, I'm learning though. I'll tell you, the video side of it is, you just have to change your mindset and really, put yourself out there if you're going to do this. And so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's admirable. So, I know your family, your parents grew up in Michigan, and you have a family home on the Torch River. Are you going to get some time there this summer?
I am leaving soon for some time up there, and I cannot wait. It's my where I go to reignite my creative spirit and spend time with my family. And I've been going up there since I was a child, so it's a really special place to me, and now my kids and my husband, and so it's going to be a nice break. So I'll put some pictures out on Instagram, out on my paddleboard, and
that sounds terrific. And you have a child in high school and one in middle school, so they'll be coming up with you and spending time. Mm-hmm.
Well, and when you work from your home, that can get challenging with your family. So this is our sabbatical that we take. It's really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah. And was it hard to work from home when they were little? I mean, how did you balance that? I mean, now they're a little older, they can kind of fight for themselves, but when they were little and you had, 2 little kids and had this really incredible business, I mean, what was that like?
It was challenging. I was fortunate. I would, I'd bring in and have babysitters, nannies come to the house. So it was always nice to be close to them, but there were, challenges at different points, but all in all, it worked out. I was lucky here in Kansas City. We have like Parents Day Out, which happens at local churches. A few days a week they could go to a little program like that. And I had family in town. My husband's family is here in Kansas City, so they helped out. So it really was it takes a village model. And then though Jack and Emma came to, Quilt Market, and I remember we dressed up Jack in his Halloween costume in our hotel room when Quilt Market was in Houston in the fall. So they've lived it with me and have been very supportive. So I feel very blessed. Do
you have any hopes of it being a family business? I mean, in some ways, you had a family business with your mom in a certain way, even though it's not, the same business, but there was a connecting thread there for sure. And she's still very involved. I mean, she was at Quilt Market modeling, right next to you, and she comes to all the shows. So do you think, what do you think, Jack and Emma, they're going to step up or no?
I don't know. Emma, I think there's opportunity, but I will totally, whatever they want to do that makes them happy will make me happy. I feel fortunate to have worked with my mom so long, and, the time we get together when we're at trade shows and traveling on research trips or whatever we might do together related to the business, it's fun to have that connection. And I think, that may happen with my daughter, but I do see the challenges of owning a business today, and I would be very cautious to push or that in them in any direction like that, just because I think it is very challenging.
Yeah, it's
probably a lot more than when I started.
It's all consuming for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's never a time in which you put it down. I mean, it's really hard to put it down. So yeah, I can tell that. I can see that would be hard, but maybe.
Yes.
So, all right. So tell us about, before we get to your recommendations, tell us about what's coming up for you and what's coming up for Indygo Junction that we can get excited about.
Well, we are... Couple things. We have our new fabric line out with RJR, the Vintage Made Modern line. So we're going to be doing a lot to promote that. It launches in September, and we'll probably do a big giveaway. And then maybe some possibility of a blog tour coming up related to it. We're also doing some video work. We recently redid an area in the office so we could actually set up and film videos. So those will be launching on the Indygo channel and the Amy Barickman channel soon. I'm really excited about getting those up and seeing what kind of traction we can get with those. And we're looking at a couple different kinds, some that are more viral focused, a lot with repurposing and recycling. And then, we'll be working towards product development. We're really, focused on, we have the patterns we did for market, and those are releasing. Those should be all up on our website by the end of July, and then we'll move right into some new development. I probably won't be traveling as much. I won't be traveling as much this fall. Last fall and through the spring, I had a heavy schedule, and so I'm looking forward to a little break there. But we're hoping we can, make up for it with video work, that we can share more of our story through that. And it is the 100th anniversary of the Women's Institute in 2016. So we're looking at the potential for some opportunities to feature more about that story. And so that's kind of it. We're in talks to get something going that'll be pretty exciting. So people follow us, we'll keep you posted on what's new.
That sounds terrific. Is there, just out of curiosity, are you like the only person who's like really championing the Women's Institute, or is there like a society or a group or a foundation or something that's also sort of supporting that you're working in conjunction with? I'm just curious if you're like the leading expert now, or if there's another group that's doing this too.
No, there isn't another group. It's really I found it. I do know, and I don't have her name on the tip of my tongue. There is the Costume Society of America has an annual meeting, and it happened to be in Kansas City, and there was actually a woman who is at Kent State that was lecturing on the Women's Institute in Mary Brooks Picken, and a few years ago I went to meet her. Really incredible, professor, and she shared that passion for this content that I did. She was working on an autobiography of Mary Brooks Picken. So I keep in touch with her and looking forward to when that book comes out, because I think there'll be more of the story that she interviewed Mary's sister or niece before this woman had passed away. So, but other than that, there is a Women's Institute in the UK that's still in existence. Uh-huh. The Women's Institute that my content and my book was based on is MAN. The Women's Institute over in England is EN.
Right.
W. So, I've talked actually to some stores over about coming to maybe do lecturing on the American Women's Institute, mm-hmm. and lecture and share with the Women's Institute that's still in existence over there. That's very active. So that's a neat,
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a historian in you. So that's really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So let's get to your recommendations. And I have one recommendation as well. So we're going to start with Olo Clip. So tell us about that.
So the Olo Clip is a lens for my iPhone that has like a fisheye lens, a wide angle, and then a couple macro lenses. And I had been considering a GoPro to take and do some filming up north in Michigan, but I ended up going with the more affordable tool. So hopefully I'll get more experience with it when I'm up capturing images of nature and the lake and things like that. So that's my new toy for the next few weeks to play with.
Yeah, so it clips onto an iPhone. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And it can make like a wide angle lens, it can make like a fisheye, and then it can make a macro. Are those the mm-hmm. three? They're like little mm-hmm. lenses that flip, and they're really powerful. So they transform your iPhone into something much more
much more interesting of the visuals you can take. In fact, my daughter and I were playing it last night, taking pictures of flowers, and I actually wished I'd had it the week before. My husband and I went to the Rolling Stones concert, and I was like, oh, this would have been awesome for that concert. But,
yeah, totally. So, and do you remember how much, first of all, I love that they use sign language in their little, like, promo video, which is really cool, because their whole point is that, like, images speak louder than words. I just wonder how much it costs. Do you remember?
I bought it for, I think it was $69.99, and I bought it at a little camera shop, and I think it's about the same on Amazon.
Okay. All right, cool. So that's a good one to know about if you're interested in sort of souping up your iPhone camera to take some cooler pictures.
For the summer.
Yeah. And, it does, obviously, the quality of those photos, if you are sharing them, it does really matter. So having a way to make a really awesome photo that's going to be attention-getting, besides being fun for you, it can pay off in the long run as far as your followers.
Yes.
If you want to use it that way. Okay, so I wanted to talk about a pretty cool website project that I found called Project Adelaide. And so these are two artists who live in Adelaide, Australia, Kate Mason and Zoe Ingram, and they draw parts of Adelaide that are like hidden gems, and they each draw their own versions of the same topic, and then they post them on Instagram. Their Instagram feed is absolutely beautiful. It's called Project Adelaide if you want to follow it. And so right now, like, they're doing animals, and it's just so charming. They have they each drew two pandas, and you see like their style left and right, so they're like side by side within one image. And they did monkeys and leopards and like zebras, and so it's like a daily drawing practice basically, and it's just highlighting hidden parts of where they live. And it is so charming and such a good use of Instagram, and such a good way to get to know the style of two different artists who are drawing the same thing on the same day, and often, quite differently, but sometimes strikingly similarly. And they did flowers, which was like a beautiful series. I think it's like a monthly theme. So yeah, if you look at it, they did food. It's just lovely, It's just one of those things that's like every day it's lovely. So I like
that. Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it is really cool. So Project Adelaide. Okay. They have a website too. They're on Facebook. They're doing it all different places. But I think it lends itself especially well to Instagram. So so that's my recommendation. And then you had one more that you wanted to talk about, which is Talk Like Ted, or was that by Carmen Gallo?
It's just a book that I'm reading. I just thought it was a really great book to help anyone who's thinking of lecturing and presenting in front of whatever size group. So I've been reading it because I really want, one of my goals, or where I think I can improve is presentation. And I do lecture and really enjoy lecturing on, for instance, the Vintage Notions book, or I've also lectured on crafting a creative business. And so this book is just, words of wisdom, examples of successes that have happened that are related to the TED Talks, and so it's been fun to kind of set a goal to improve in that.
Yeah, I just bought it.
Skill.
I just bought it while you were talking because it looks fantastic, and I'm actually going to be. I'm going to be the keynote speaker at a conference in February, and I haven't.
Congratulations!
Yeah, but it's and I have another speaking engagement right prior to that, so there'll be two back to back. One of them is local here, and then one of them's I have to travel for. And that is not my area of expertise. Like, I think it's really cool and exciting, but I've got a lot to learn. So that book sounds like exactly perfect for me right now. I was just saying to my husband last night, I need to watch some more TED Talks so I can learn how to do this. So that's super. Thank you.
Well, that's exciting that you're doing some lecturing too.
Yeah. Cool, right? I mean, always got to look forward. So, yeah, I'm excited. Well, Amy, it's been great talking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the While She Naps podcast.
Well, thank you. I love these podcasts, so I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, good. And you've been listening to the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg, and I invite you to visit my blog, whileshenaps.com, where you'll find helpful information for creative entrepreneurs, as well as tutorials and patterns for making stuffed animals and dolls. And if you enjoy the show, tell a friend about it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.